Hello, welcome to Lost and Found No More Secrets. My name is Heidi Billingsley Kuiper, and I am the host of the show. I am a genetic genealogist with DNAngels. DNAngels is a dedicated nonprofit organization helping people to discover their biological truth. Whether they are adopted, an NPE, meaning not parent expected, donor conceived, or they just never knew who their biological parent is, we're there to help. Join us on today's episode as we explore the powerful journey of one of our very own clients, following their path from feeling lost to finally being found. Discover how they reclaim their sense of identity, proving that one sense of identity is more important than someone else's secrets. Hello, welcome to Lost and Found No More Secrets. I'm joined by my co-host, Jennifer, who is also a volunteer genetic genealogist with DNAngels. She's been gracious enough to take time out of her weekend to be my co-host. How are you today, Jen?
Hello, happy to be here. I'm doing well. Thanks. I'm visiting family up in New York, so I'm not in my normal setting and everything like that, but we're gonna still have a really great show.
I appreciate you taking the time out.
Of
So
course.
today's guest is Robin. And you know how at the beginning of the show I say we have an adoptee or we have an NPE, not parent expected. I'm not really sure how to even categorize him. I read through his room and we're going to have to bring him up on stage and kind of
Yeah.
break it down with him. So let's do that. Let's bring
Yeah.
Robin, our guest, up to the stage.
Good morning.
Hey, Robin.
Good morning, Robin. You look very dashing on this Saturday morning.
Yeah, I'm actually slumming it.
Are you? I was wondering, are you always this dashing on a Saturday morning? Is this your normal get up?
Well, I got my Penn State shirt on because I'm a Penn State guy.
Awesome.
But Saturdays I kind of dress down a little bit, but during the week, I try to look my best. And
That's good. That's
So,
good.
Robin, I want to
cowboy
start at the beginning. I want you to tell me about your family structure and what it was like growing up for you.
I was when I was born, I was adopted and sent to an orphanage, and because I always say multi-ethnic, but most people use the term biracial. But so my mother was talked into. This is what I found out later, that my mother was talked into giving me up because her being white and my father being black. Back when I was born, was not considered kosher. So I went to an orphanage, and then I was there for like 2 years, from what I understand, and then sent back to my mom because they were shutting it down. And then she, through an intermediary, was trying to get me back to, or going to give me to my dad. Somehow that didn't happen. I ended up in a foster home of a black woman, and she ended up raising me. So the good part is I was in the same house. I grew up in the same house. I wasn't in a system where I was being bounced around. So that was very fortunate. But that being said, it was very emotionally and physically abusive. I mean, she was not a happy camper. Basically. And so she took out a lot of her, I think, frustrations on me. And so that was not good. And so basically I grew up
So
there.
tell me a little bit about more about that. So you're the lady that was fostering you was black, and she didn't like that you were biracial. Is that what you mean by that?
Well, she reminded me of that in very abusive ways that, that's what I was called. Excuse me, that's my daughter. She just woke up. So the way that worked out is she was not an educated woman. She was probably just one or two generations from, being a slave, basically. Her parents were sharecroppers in Macon, Georgia. So she wasn't that far removed. Like I said, she was a domestic, so she cleaned other people's floors and, the white people out in the suburbs. And so there was a lot of resentment on her part because of that. She wasn't educated. I actually taught her how to read so she could at least read the newspaper. But there was a lot of hostility there. And I think that was because of where she was, in the socioeconomic ladder and all that, and knowing that she couldn't go any better.
Were there
That,
other children in the house, or was it just
yes,
you?
there was a sister. There was a foster sister. My foster mother never had any children of her own. So, and I always wondered how she ended up with me. And she told me one time that when she saw me walking down the street, somebody was holding my hand. I was crying, and I was just a cute little kid. And she kind of took pity on me. And of course, they had an adopted daughter, so they wanted to have a little brother for her.
Oh,
So that was the story she gave me. But her actions, I think, for the most part, didn't match up with the kindness, But that being said, we made her peace later on in life. So,
Oh, good, good.
Yeah. But then during that time, I was searching for my actual biological family. I always had that sense of curiosity. And so I had this birth certificate, says Robin Purcell. And so I was able to track down via the information I had, this family who had been my dad, and the maternal side, which would have been my mom. So when I left home at 17 and went into the military, I actually, when I was 10 or 11 years old, one of the uncles, guys who I thought was my uncle, showed up. And so that created a whole episode because she was really threatened by that and wouldn't let me go stay with my uncle and all that stuff. And that's a long story in itself. But so that got really ugly. So that really kind of really lit the fire that I need to find my people. And that fire has never extinguished since. So when I got out of the Navy, I actually made a concerted effort to find my family. And I had members of this church that I went to as a kid that I grew up in. The pastor and some other people in the church were actually instrumental in helping me find these people who I thought was my family. And so I met the grandmother who I thought was my grandmother, who would have been my paternal grandmother, and then cousins and all that on that side. And then I met the woman who she thought I was her son, and I thought I was her son. And we had a, 20, 30-year relationship. And, it was wonderful because, I treated her like a son would treat his mom, who really wanted my mom to be treated like a queen. I would visit all the time. We had great talks. And she was, I always told her, because she was, she would cry sometimes. And I'm so sorry you did that. And it's like, don't worry about it. I found you. We're good. I found my family. Well, then to move forward, because I could go on that, for years, but moving forward then, I became, I was a teacher and all that. And I'm teaching criminal justice and forensic science. So one of the sections in my forensic science class we talked about DNA. So one year I did the DNA. I submitted my DNA to the Genome Project for National Geographic because I wanted to know how far back my DNA went and which haplogroup I'm in, which most of us, you're either in Central Africa or slightly Eastern Africa. There's two major groups. And and I was using that as an example of how far your DNA can go back. So then 5 years later in 2019, I decided I'm going to go on Ancestry and I want to know exactly how much Irish, how much German, how much, African-American or African, all that. But when I did that, the results came back and there was no matches whatsoever with the last name Purcell, neither distant or recent. So I contacted the woman I thought was my half sister. And I said, "Did you ever do the Ancestry thing?" She goes, "Yeah, my daughter got it for me." I said, "Well, did you ever get the results back?" She goes, "Yeah, but I don't know what's on the results." Okay, fine. So I contacted the daughter and she looked it up. She's up, "You're not there." And I'm like, okay, there's got to be a problem here. Contacted Ancestry, and I kind of knew because I taught this stuff, that 99.9999999% it's accurate, right?
Right.
But I had to call them anyway. So I did that. And they said, "Don't waste your money on another one, okay? Because it's going to come out the same way." I said, "Thank you. You kind of reaffirmed my suspicion that it was correct." So I ended up reaching out to these people who I don't know. And then I reached out to this one guy. He showed up as a first cousin. And then there was another person, actually his daughter, that came up, I think, as a first or second cousin. It would be a second cousin, I think, at that point. So I reached out to her, and she responded right away. You should contact my dad. So I reached out to her dad. And interesting enough, that's when I realized I hit the gold mine, because he responded right away. And he goes, let me find out. Okay, let me check into this, because, he saw the results. And he goes, let me check out and see what I can find out. Let me talk to my mom. Well, his mom turns out to be one of my older surviving sisters. And so he comes back and sends me a message, and he says, please call me. So he gave me his number. I called him. He says, my mom is your sister. And then from there it was, how do I put it? A whirlwind after that, in a very good way. Of course, they were suspicious at first, like, what do you want? Because we don't have anything, we're just blue-collar people. We ain't got no money. So I wrote her a nice, because she's kind of like she is the matriarch of the family now, right? She's the oldest surviving sister. And let's see, there's Frances, there's Rose. So there's two older sisters that have passed away. I never got a chance to meet them. And then I have another sister who's 12 years older than me. Her name is Grace. And then, of course, there's Jackie, who's the oldest one, surviving one. And so I wrote her a nice long letter, letting her know that I'm not after anybody's money. I'm fine. I got a nice career. I'm self-sufficient. I'm not looking for anybody's inheritance or anything like that. I just want my birthright. And that is to know my family. Nothing more, nothing less.
Right.
And it was awesome.
Oh, good.
Awesome. They opened up their arms, and next thing I know, now this was during the pandemic, so I couldn't rush back to see them, right? But we persevered through that. We kept in touch. We were doing Zooms, and then when they started lifting travel and stuff like that, my older brother, he couldn't wait. He got on a plane and came out here for a weekend. And I was already making plans to go back there. So I think it was a week or so before that, he flew out. He just couldn't wait. He said, I got to go see my brother. And so he came out. We hung out for a weekend, had dinner. He got to meet my daughter, his niece. And then I guess it was a couple of weeks later, I flew back to Pennsylvania, and I met the rest of the tribe on my maternal side. And open arms. And we were at there's another girl, a member of the family. Her name is.
Let's pause for a second, because you said you went to go back to meet your maternal side, but we're talking about paternal side, right? The sister is from your.
The sisters. All this is on my maternal side.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were, because you were talking about Purcell, the last name Purcell.
Well,
that had me confused.
My actual family name on my maternal side is not Purcell at all. So it turns out that all that documentation that I have, and my name is not my name. My name at birth was Joey. Okay. Somehow, when I was in the orphanage, records either were intentionally switched or unintentionally. Okay. And I ended up with Robin Purcell, Robin Purcell's birth certificate. And then that's how I grew up. My whole life is built around that name. And that the problem with that came to fruition when I applied for a passport. And it took me 2 years to get my passport because of that. Because a birth certificate that I had that had Robert White and Mary Purcell, the State Department says, no, that's not right. That's not who you are. There was a problem. So because of that, it took me 2 years.
Wow.
So actually the birth certificate that I have now has adoptive parents on it with the name Robin Purcell. And even I have an adoption certificate saying that Robin Purcell was adopted. And his last name now is Robert Edward Gerald. I wrote a thesis paper on how this came in, how this.
I'm trying to keep up. I'm being honest with you. I'm really struggling to keep up. So So you're the sister that you are talking about is your sister from your mother's side.
It's my biological side, all on my maternal side. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were you able to find the real Robin Purcell?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
tracked this guy down. Yeah, I tracked this guy down. Excuse me, Kitty. I tracked this guy down. The adopted name, Robert Edward Gerald. I tracked him out. He lives in Franklinville, New Jersey, and I actually reached
What?
out to him. Yes,
That's
I know. I know exactly.
my backyard.
Yeah. Well, we should
That's
talk, 'cause I can tell you
literally like
exactly what it is.
two towns over from me. That's crazy.
Okay. And I Googled it. I know exactly what the property and everything looks like. And I reached out to him. I said, I think you need to sit down, because what I've got to tell you is probably going to rock your world. And I said, were you ever told that you were adopted? And the conversation stopped there. He put no, I've never been adopted, and blah, 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 blah. So I'm thinking, okay. I said, but that being said, I have documentation that can probably prove, well, that will prove that you were adopted, just like that. And then I could hear that he got really defensive, and, I was never adopted, and he's in denial, whatever. And so I left it at that. I could be, there's a part of me that said, you should just go knock on his door, but I'm not going to do that. The guy is the same age as I am. Don't need to turn his world upside down.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not interested, I have no right to infringe upon that. So I just left that alone. I know what the truth is, or at least what I assume to be the truth. So I'm good with that. And then I just moved on. I'm still curious, though. It's like, maybe I should go drive by and see where he has breakfast at on a Saturday, and go just drop in and sit there and have a conversation, but never bring the subject up.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if
so
he had a
real.
hard time. I wonder if he had a hard time getting his passport, or the same.
No, probably not, because if he was adopted and they're listed on his birth certificate, he's good to go. He's good to go. So so that's the paternal side. The maternal side, and then on the maternal side, I reached out and was in contact with some people, and DNAngels was also helpful with that. But I also I was able to find out, what happened, how I found my maternal side of the family, and their last name is Cash. And I found that out pretty early too, but how I was able to locate them is I have an aunt who lives out here in California. I didn't know it at the time. I was processing for a position as a consultant, working with Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services as what we call ed specialist. I was helping foster youth get the educational resources they need after I retired from teaching. And so while I was in the city at the department getting my ID card and finishing processing, I get a text message saying, I think I found a first cousin. And so I said, okay, good. And then they put the address. They gave me the address. Well, it was on my way home, because I live out in the suburbs of LA.
Wow.
And so I said, I'm going to swing by here and just check it out. So I pull up, I go knock on the door. Out steps a gentleman, and he's a little hesitant because he doesn't know what I'm there for. And I'm kind of, being careful about what I say, right? Mm-hmm. And then eventually I said, well, I've done some DNA research, and I did my DNA, and it appears that we're related. And his eyes just lit up. He was like, oh, cool, right? And awesome. I said, I'm looking for Emma Cash Durazo. And I said, it looks like she's my first cousin. So there were open arms, and I didn't get a chance to meet her that day, but it was her son that I ended up talking to. And so he and I hit it off right away. He's like, oh man, I do. And he's been doing some research too. So, I got a ton of information I can give you. And so
that's good. You've got the right person to open the door then, because if they're like the family historian, they're going to be more open to someone showing up at their front door with this kind of information than somebody who's like, no, you lucked out.
So he was really good about that and very open, and kind of a charming guy. So so we kept in contact, and I think we connected a week later. I went to their place where my aunt actually lives in L.A., which is north. It's called Glassell Park, which is like Eagle Park. It's north part of the city of L.A. And so I met this woman, and like I said, the DNA said that the researcher said she might be a cousin. Well, she agreed. My aunt, turns out she's my aunt, agreed to do the DNA test. So of course I ordered the test, got it, and then she took it, and right away. And this is a 90-some-year-old woman, and she was all for it. And she said, let's do this. And so she took the test and came back. She's my aunt. She's my dad's sister. So now the question was, which one of her brothers?
Right.
Because,
How many brothers does she have?
let's see. There's Clarence. There's Bryce. I don't know, 4 or 5 brothers. There were like 13 kids. Okay.
Big
She
family.
had a lot of siblings. Yeah. But she has an older sister who's a year older than her, I think. They're the only 2 surviving siblings out of all of them. And one's 95, the other's 96. So
some longevity.
Yeah.
Good genes.
Well, I found out that I have a great uncle, a great grandfather on my dad's side who lived to be 107.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He retired from mining, I think in his 70s or 80s, left Pennsylvania or wherever it was, went to Kentucky and started working again in a mine.
Mm.
And then were you ever able to narrow down to which brother it was?
Yes. Haven't been able to do it through DNA because obviously he's passed away. But one of my maternal sisters, she said, I remember this man that, of course, my mom was seeing, and she said he was a musician. She couldn't remember his name, but she said he was very tall, a black guy, very handsome, and that he could play, he was a musician. And so I asked my aunt, I said, because I had a couple other cousins I found out in Ohio, and they did the DNA test because I thought maybe one of their dads would have been my dad. So, and I came back as a cousin. So we knew that it wasn't her brother, William. And so, so what we did is I talked to one of my sisters when I visited her, and she says, yeah, I remember this guy. He was a musician. So then I asked my aunt, I said, do you have any brothers that were musicians? She goes, yeah, that was Clarence. Clarence was a womanizer and he was a musician. Oh, wow. And so that.
You checked the boxes.
There you go.
I was like, okay. I said, so I don't think I'll it makes sense. So I did that. And so I'm content with that. I'm happy with that. And my aunt, her name is Emma. And the interesting story about her is, she's a black woman who did very well out of the, that litter of kids that my grandparents had. But she went to the same little town, this place called Pottsville, Pennsylvania, where the other family I thought was mine. They were from the same place. And in fact, my aunt, when I asked her about all the 3 brothers who were the man I thought was my dad was one of them. I said, did you know anybody in the White family, like Robert and Jack and Richard? She goes, yeah, we knew those guys. They lived within blocks of each other on the same side. So they all knew everybody. And I'm like, oh my God, I was that close and didn't know it, So that was interesting. But my aunt, Emma, she went, she went and finished high school and then went to Penn State, and while she was there, she went into an officer candidate program, and then got a commission in the United States Army, and then so she worked in the Army. I think she was active for a while, and then she spent many years in the National Guard or Army National Guard Reserve. She retired as a major.
Impressive.
She got her master's degree and her PhD all in education at Penn State. So. And seeing that I had graduated from Penn State,
right.
We had that added connection. We're like, yes,
wow. Yes.
So,
yeah.
So that just made the bond even much closer.
So Robin, tell me, was your aunt, was she able to provide you with any pictures of Clarence, your father?
Yes, she did, and I have several pictures of him. Yeah.
Do you see a
Do you see
resemblance?
a resemblance? Sorry. Sorry.
I see a resemblance in the jawline.
Mm.
There seems to be a resemblance there, and then especially with not just my dad, but also my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. Probably more so. When I look at his picture, the jawline, and it makes a lot of sense. When I look at them, I like, okay.
Did
And
Clarence
that
have
might
any?
be,
Did Clarence have any other children?
wouldn't be surprised from what I hear.
But none that you know of.
None that I know of as far as
Okay.
him. Now, there was another brother, William, and that's why everybody was excited about me making contact, because William they know of at least 26 kids that he fathered.
Wow.
And so they were
Mm.
dropping out of the trees. And so they thought I was another one, and everybody was all excited. And it turned out it was just a cousin. So they were a little disappointed.
Well, I would definitely keep an eye on your ancestry DNA, because you
Yeah.
might have any day now you can have a sibling pop up on there.
Oh,
Especially
yeah.
since the kits are on sale now, so there's a lot of people, DNA testing.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So you're building a relationship now with your aunt, you said, and some of your cousins, and
Oh, yeah.
you've got a relationship going with some people on your biological mother's side of the family. So both sides are starting to develop out. And do you feel now like, how do you feel about it?
Uh, I was thinking about, somebody was asking me about that a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, I'm at peace. I always have this sense of curiosity. I know I wouldn't say siblings, but I know that there are more cousins and things like that. So I'm really eager to meet them. But that being said, the search is pretty much done. The hard part is done. Everything else is icing on the cake. I've been really blessed that I've been received with open arms on both sides of the family. It's not like some big secret. Well, in a way there was, because my mom didn't tell there were two groups of us in my mom's side of the family, as kids. I had 4 older sisters. They all knew about me. But my older brother, younger brother, and younger sister, they were never told. So when I found them, that caused a little bit of questioning. Not a lot of drama. They were just like, why didn't you tell us?
Right.
Because they said, they would have been looking for me. So, but we, the younger group, we really bonded. I mean, we were like, hey, we have our own little subgroup within the group, and I've hung out with my brothers a couple times, and it's funny, you see these, older men, but when we're together, we're just like a bunch of teenage boys. We're just insane. We're in the same sense of humor. When I first met all 3 of us were together, and they picked me up at the airport. I had a picture of the 3 of us together, and I actually had an artist do a rendering of that, so that we each have a copy of that picture.
Oh, nice.
And
that's special.
It is, yeah, because I wanted them to have that, because it meant a lot to me to have a picture with me and my 2 brothers. And we also have a younger sister who now my brothers are all white, but my younger sister, she's also biracial.
Okay.
So they were wondering why I was the only one that was given away. I'm like, it is what it is, Mom made her decisions, and she has to live with it.
Yeah, the circumstances must have been different when you were born.
And the thing is nobody's hating. She's still my mom, and I was able to visit her gravesite, and so that was closure for me. That was closure for me when I was able to go with my brothers, and we went to my mom's gravesite, and I was able to kneel there and say, I found you.
That's
where
awesome.
you're at now. And we sat there, and we were quiet for a while and paid our respects, and then we went out and partied. Drank a lot of beer.
Love it.
Had a good time.
Robin, I understand that you did a documentary about your story. Is that
I flew back, and I lugged my camera equipment with me, and because when I retired, I bought this really expensive camera, a professional camera, and so I said, I gotta document this. So I made a little video that I posted on YouTube, and I think I did on Facebook too. It's called My DNA Journey. And then I had a little opening, and then I had how I actually, when I actually met at one of my sister's one of my sister's partner, but we consider her a sister. Her name is Elsie.
Yeah.
So we all, and we met at her house, and she gave us all big hugs. And my younger brother was there, my older brother was there. That was the next day after my brothers picked me up at the airport. So we went out, and then I spent the week there. I got a chance to interview my siblings, and then also, I don't know, about 40, 50 people showed up that following Saturday because the word was out. He's here. And so they just...
So special.
It was like a swarm. Yeah.
It was, like,
Yeah.
okay, here's the tribe. We're good.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was great. And I love each and every one of them. They're just, they're average people, but they're
They're
good
your
people.
tribe. They're your tribe.
It's my tribe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
Yeah.
really make me feel welcome, and now I'm in contact with all of them. How you doing? How's your kids doing? Blah, blah. So,
Good.
yeah. So, and
Well,
Good. And you can...
we would like to link that so our viewers can watch that YouTube video. So we'll get together with you, and you send us a link to your YouTube documentary.
I can do that. Sure.
So we can put it down here in our comments. I'm sure the viewers would like to see that. Well, in conclusion, Robin, tell us, what advice do you have for people that are going through the same journey that you did? They're hitting roadblocks, and they're not sure what move to do next, and they're getting discouraged. So what advice do you have for people in a similar situation as you were?
I think the most important thing is don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give up. If you are looking for your actual family, your biological family, if you're an NPE, don't give up. We all took the DNA test. We opened up a Pandora's box. We have no idea how it's going to turn out. Okay. But like I've said, I say this constantly over and over again. You want your truth, good or bad. You want your truth, because there's some people, they find it and it's ugly, but it's your truth, and I think you can live with that at some point. It is what it is. That's something you have no control over, but just don't give up. It took me pretty much a lifetime, of just I'm curious. That's part of my nature. I'm a lifelong learner. And so I wanted what seems to be the right answer, then I'm going to dig. Keep asking questions and don't give up, because, eventually you're going to find your truth, and that's what you'll be able to live with. And then hopefully the outcome will be positive. And I think more times I'd say 9 times out of 10, it will be positive, because it would give you the strength that, this is who I am. This is me. I know my lineage. I know my, my biological line. And that's all we really want to know. Now, granted, some of us need more of that connection with that family. I was more than blessed to make connections and be accepted. But if that weren't the case, would it hurt? Yes. But the most important thing is I got my truth.
Right. We all have an inherent right to know our truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Robin, for agreeing
Right.
to be a guest on our show. I really enjoyed your story. I'm looking forward to watching that documentary. So make sure and send us that link.
Me too.
It'd be my
Me too.
pleasure to send and share it with you. Absolutely. And so you're so close to Franklinville.
Right. Right. I can't believe it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But thank you for having me and allowing me to share this story. I hope it's, it will inspire someone else to pursue it and not give up. And,
Yeah.
feel free to holler out at me on DNAngels or whatever. If I can help someone and mentor somebody else to get through, because that's the other thing too, because some people get overwhelmed, and I went through that. So if you can help them, navigate that, because it's not easy.
Since you mentioned that, Robin, if we have your permission, if you could send us your email address, and in the comments, we can say if you would like to contact Robin for advice, or they need a buddy during this process, here's how to reach them. So if we have your permission to do that, we'll just link your email address as well in the comments.
Oh, absolutely. Be glad to help, because I know it can be a little difficult for some people, because it's, like I said, it was overwhelming for me. And thankful for, finding DNAngels online. That was my support. That helped get me back down, to where I was steady and in balance again. Yeah. And then I was able to move forward. Yeah. Yeah.
Robin, if I just make a suggestion, if we're going to do that on YouTube, if you have an email address that you don't mind being put out in the public, just to help filter things, I wouldn't use your personal. You might want to create a second. Okay.
I have another one. It's a Gmail account, but I can give you that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't use that a lot, but that's my safe
right.
one. Absolutely.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Robin, so much. You be blessed.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for your time, Robin. Man, what a story, right?
Cool.
Whew.
Very. So I don't normally recommend knocking on the door of biological family, but man, it sure did work out well for him, didn't it?
He knocked on the right person's door, because honestly, it's just such a risk, Heidi, because if it's the person who's like, listen, we all know that there are some people that are like, I'm not talking about this, right? Like, I know stuff, but I can't talk about it and it's too upsetting, or I swore I never would. The door is shut. You're done. You're not getting through that door. So it's a big risk. But if you get the right person who's, I mean, if somebody came and knocked on my door, I would be like, come in, come in. What have you got? Here's what I've got. Let's figure this out. But if somebody else in my family answered, they might not get the same response. So he hit a gold mine. Yeah, hit a gold mine right there. Yeah.
Well, we're out of time. Jennifer, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday.
Of course.
We would like, if you are enjoying Lost and Found No More Secrets, this is going to be airing around the time of giving. If you are enjoying our stories and you would like to contribute to our mission, we are going to go ahead and put a link towards for donating to our cause. We really appreciate all of y'all that help support our mission. We feel very strongly about it. We're very passionate about it and changing lives every single day. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe, go watch Robin's documentary, and we'll see you next Thursday. Bye, everyone.
Bye.